So that makes me think, because I remember watching a live thing that he put up once, and you're on it playing bass.
Nice.
And at some point, don't you escape from a straitjacket? Where does that come in? Because you could pick locks, you can escape from a straitjacket. Were you raised by a magician? Hello and welcome to another episode of Just Another Fanboy. I'm your host. My name is Steven, and today I got something special for y'all folks. I'm talking to a dude who calls himself Sulfur. He is an indie rapper, a nerdcore rapper, and he recently put out, back on October the 29th, an EP called The Wheel of Rhyme. This is an EP that contains songs inspired by the Wheel of Time book series by Robert Jordan. And I have to admit, a few weeks back, he had tweeted out that this was coming, and my heart skipped like 9 beats. I thought I was going to die. I was so excited. I thought I was going to die, folks. That's what happens when I get super excited. When I have a fanboy freaking just hullabaloo in my heart, I feel like I'm going to die. But he put the EP out on October 29th. I got it right away. I started listening to it. It's so good. I really enjoyed it. And then he tweeted out that, hey, if there's any podcasters out there that would like me to come on and talk about this EP and talk about, the show and the books, because there's a show coming out. I don't know if I've said that before, folks. There is a Wheel of Time show coming out on Amazon Prime based on these 15 books from Robert Jordan. And I immediately said, yeah, come on over to my podcast, which, y'all should know me well enough by now that I have crippling social issues. I've talked about it many a time. It's really easy for me to sit here in a room by myself and talk like this and say stuff like crippling social issues. But when it comes to actually sitting down and talking to a person that I have never in my entire life met before, it is a difficult thing for me to do. But I wanted to talk to this guy because A, he's a fellow Wheel of Time fan. B, he created this awesome EP. And C, it just made freaking sense, right? It just made sense to sit down and talk to this dude. And the thing is that just recently I went back and put together the stuff that we talked about. I kind of go through and I clean it up a little bit, listen to the entire conversation. And I'm pretty embarrassed to admit that I did a lot of the talking. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was very nervous and I was trying to hide my discomfort by talking nonstop. And I have to apologize right here to Sulfur if I doubt he did. He was a really nice guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't leave that call on Sunday and go, gee, Louie-la-loo, that guy sure does talk. That's not what he sounds like at all. You're going to listen to this and go, why did Steven make Sulfur sound like such a dweeb? Do they say dweeb anymore? I do. I just did. Take that. Anyway, I spent a lot of it talking. Not that he didn't. He got plenty of chances to talk. Yeah, I'm defending myself, even though I'm the one that brought it up. But yeah, I got to apologize right now. I feel like kind of an idiot, folks. I feel like an idiot, and I am not ashamed to admit that. Anyway, this is it. Here's my talk. Me and Sulfur. We talk about the EP. We talk about the books. We talk about the show. We talk about all kinds of stuff. I personally had a great time. He tweeted out that he had a great time. We did leave the conversation talking about possibly getting back together after the show is over, the first season of the Wheel of Time, and then just talking about the show in general, which that is going to be a lot of fun, I think, because, yeah, I really did have a good time talking with him. He seems like a really super nice guy, very down to earth, and the fella can rhyme. He can throw some flows together, folks. So here you go. Here is my conversation with Sulfur. I guess let's just start with Do you call them records these days since they're all digital?
You do. You still call them records.
Still call them records?
Yeah, EPs, LPs, still use the terminology. It's just MP3s now instead.
Yeah. The Wheel of Rhyme, I have to tell you, when I saw you tweet about that a few weeks before it came up, because I listen to a lot of nerd rap. I'm a big fan of Michael Kill, you know him obviously, and
I know that guy.
Adam Warrock is who kind of got me into listening to the nerdcore, and
awesome.
And never in my life did I think somebody, I didn't even put it out there. Somebody needs to do at least a freaking song about the Wheel of Time.
Sure.
And so when that popped up, my mind just freaking blew. I couldn't believe it. I said, holy crap, somebody did a freaking album. Well, it's 9 tracks total. One's an intro, one's a remix. Would you call that an LP or an EP?
I would call it an EP. It's probably a good sized EP still.
Well, first of all, it's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
And you had Michael Kill do some of that for you, right?
Yeah, he did all the beats on the album. So Michael Kill did all the production on the album. I did almost all of the raps, and then my good friend Cecil Nick did post-production, mixing, mastering, did a lot. So. And
you got the very first track is Introduction with frickin' Michael Kramer and Kate Redding.
Yes.
Anybody who's listened to the audiobooks knows those two names. How did that happen?
Honestly, a lot easier than I would have thought, but I thought it was a long shot when I tried. What I found out was I'm a huge Michael and Kate fan, as I'm sure a lot of us are. I've actually looked for books that they've narrated just because they narrated them after I was done with Wheel of Time and a lot of Sanderson, because it was I love that background you got there. But it was just
going on with that. I don't know where that came from. That's weird.
I'm into it. I'm feeling it. But no, I was a huge fan. And so just through being a bit of a fangirl, I wound up on their actual website one day. And what I noticed was they're big supporters of this program called Books for Prisoners, which is really great, program to begin with. Does exactly what you think it does. And I noticed on their website that if you made a donation to Books for Prisoners, that they would actually send you a little greeting, just a little, hey, what's up, Michael and Kate. And I thought it was really cool. And so I wrote them and I was like, hey, what if I make a little more of a donation than you're asking for? Because one, great program. I want to do it anyway, either way. But if I do that, could I ask you to do something a little shorter for me, but maybe a little intro for an album? Totally did not expect them to say yes, to be upfront and honest. I was just like, I'm going to shoot my shot, just like Matt at the craps table, and roll the dice. And the dice stopped in my head. And they said, that sounds really interesting. We'll do it. And there you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm listening to the books right now.
Nice.
All right. So can I ask you how old you are?
Of course you can. I'm 38.
38. All right. So I'm a bit older than you. I got a decade on you.
Okay.
So I've been reading these books since the mid 90s. And I'm sure that we're going to end up, for the listeners out there, we're probably going to end up spoiling a lot because it's just going to happen. There's just so much that happens in these books.
Yes.
Once we start talking about the EP, that'll get us talking about the freaking books. And I'm sure we'll talk about the show that's coming up. But the one thing we're not going to spoil, as many times as I have read these books, I've yet to finish the series. The last 2 books I've never read.
Oh, wow.
I have this real issue with because I think when I got the first book, I think the first 3 were out. So I was able to read those all in a row.
Sure.
Well, by the time the 4th book came out, I started to read it and I'm like, I don't remember a lot of what happened before. I'll reread the first 3. And I started to do that every time a book came out. And after I think book 7, I'm just going to wait till it's all done.
Sure.
And then I listened to all the books up through the first. Brandon Sanderson does the last 3. Is that right?
He does. That's right.
I think I listened to the first one and then I got distracted and I've just never finished it. So the goal this time is to get through the whole freaking thing. So I have no idea. I have no clue how it ends. I have no idea. I'm assuming the good guys win. That's kind of what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that the good guys win. But I'm sure we'll get into that. What brought you to the books? Obviously, you're a big fan. You made a freaking record out of it.
Sure.
What were they recommended to you? Did you stumble across them? How'd you get into the books?
It's a good question. And, it's been so long ago, I kind of forgot to a slight extent, exactly how. What I do remember is this. I actually listened to your Eye of the World podcast, and I have a little bit of a similar story in the sense that, I started reading these when I was really young. I think I was in middle school, to be honest with you. And I started reading fantasy through things like Dragonlance. I was reading those, and really quickly into reading a few of those, I just kind of stumbled across Wheel of Time in the sense of it being talked about as, hey, this is the quintessential fantasy that you need to read. If you're liking this, you should be reading this. And so very quickly into reading fantasy, I started on Wheel of Time, and Wheel of Time kind of became fantasy for me at that point. Like anything else was the exception. When I started reading, and I forgot what year it was, but I remember Winter's Heart was on bookshelves at the time. So, Robert Jordan was still alive. I was reading through, and, as a kid, I got to Lord of Chaos, I want to say, book 6, and I put it down. And I never put it down because I wasn't enjoying it. I just, my reading time, I was getting a little older. Reading time started to get a little slimmer. And I always had this thing in my head of, well, I'm going to go back to it at some point. I'm going to finish this series. And I didn't. And then I heard of Jordan's passing. And it was I don't know, maybe a little flippant, because Robert Jordan's passing in and of itself is incredibly sad. There was this moment of personal sadness I had where I thought, I'm never going to go back and finish the Wheel of Time now. And even though I had stopped reading at 6, if somebody asked me, what's your favorite fantasy? I would have absolutely told them the Wheel of Time. And I did all the way up, even still, until I picked it back up to finish it a few years back. And honestly, the reason I did was I signed up for Audible. Michael Kill had recommended an autobiography from a musician, and I was like, well, here's a free way to listen to that. So I'm going to sign up for these 3 credits. And I blew through my first 2 credits because the autobiography was short. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book I absolutely love. But
you're speaking my language.
There we go. But it's short too, so I got this 3rd Audible credit. And as stupid as it is to say, I want to get my money's worth. I want to get my money's worth out of this free credit. I remembered Eye of the World, and I'm like, well, that's a meaty book. That's probably 30 hours roughly. And I got Eye of the World, not expecting to just immediately fall back into that world. I spent a year roughly of life just burning through all the audiobooks. So. Yeah.
I'm about an hour 46 done I have an hour 46 left of book 2. Nice. And it's really fun that I keep hitting certain things in these first 2 books where I'll hit something and I'll go, oh yeah, this is going to happen in, later books, and Perrin is going to meet that girl and he's going to go, all this crap and stuff. And it's just amazing. I was right out of high school, I think, when I first read the book. But again, I think the most sprawling, epic freaking fantasy book I had read up to that point was probably, I don't know if you read The Belgariad by David Eddings. Don't. I remember really I read it, and I think when I was a freshman, and just loved it. It's what really kind of got me into fantasy. But I tried to get back into it recently, and it's really racist. And I didn't realize it back then. And then I read more about him, and he's sounds like he's kind of problematic too. So. That was a real disappointment. But yeah, I started reading freaking Wheel of Time, and it's just like these, you think about the Lord of the Rings and how the Lord of the Rings ends. While those hobbits were, they were different people, but they go back to their old lives, to a certain extent. And even though I haven't finished this book, there's no way any of those folks are going back to their old lives. There's just no way. By the end of the first book, they're not going back to Emmons Field and raising sheep by the end of this series. And I think it's almost the same sense I got when I started watching Robotech when I was like in grade school. It's like, I've never seen such a sprawling story like this before in a cartoon. That's how I felt with the Wheel of Time. So let's talk about the EP for a little bit here. Okay. So like I said, there's 9 tracks. I'm looking at it right now. First one is your spoiler alert with Kate Redding and Michael Kramer. Now, as I'm listening to these songs, it was pretty neat, just kind of picking out stuff, even though, again, I'm on the 2nd book, but I remember a lot of the stuff. So like Son of Battles is my favorite song on the EP. That song freaking bumps. What's the name of that freaking instrument that he's using there at the beginning or there in that song? Because it's just like that and a drum. It's a wonderful question.
I really want to be able to answer it, and I can't think of it in the moment.
That makes me feel good that I don't know. I even my daughter is into Japanese culture, and I played it, and I said, "What's that instrument called?" She goes, "I don't know. I can tell you what it looks like, but I don't know what it's called." But
same here.
That song, I come across the title. I'm Son of Battles. That didn't, most of these jump right out at you. The Wheel Weaves, obviously, Tom Maryland, Ashaman. I'll be honest, I looked that up. I'm like, what's a freaking Ashaman? As soon as I looked it up, I was like, oh yeah, those are the dudes, man. Those are the guys that his little freaking Aes Sedai army, man. They were. And that Mazrim Taim, didn't he run them? Wasn't he the guy in charge of the Ashaman?
He did. Yes.
Because as soon as you start saying Ashaman kill, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the Battle of Dumai's Wells.
Servants of All, really kind of a funny story about that, because like I said, I'm on the second book. Mm-hmm. The day that this EP dropped, October 29th, y'all can get it out there at bandcamp.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. I every morning I get up and I take my kids to school because I work from home.
Okay.
And I've been listening to the book. It's like a 10-minute trip there, 10-minute trip back.
So. And
I just happen to be on the chapter where Nynaeve goes through the rings to become an accepted. And they repeat that, the way will come but once, be steadfast. They keep saying that throughout that chapter. And then I get back and I log in. I'm like, oh, crap, this EP dropped today. And I'm listening to it and I get to that song. And that really connected with me just simply because I had been listening to that chapter that very same day. It was really funny. But
nice.
As I'm looking through these titles, as I listened to this EP, the first thing that struck me was I have to ask, was it kind of a struggle trying to narrow down the ideas that you wanted to put in this thing? Because you got you got a song about Matt Cawthon, you got a song about Tom Maryland, you got the Ashaman. Form and flow could be about Rand or really, any swordmaster.
Sure.
You got the Aes Sedai with Servants of All. You got the Aiel with Wash the Spears, and those are my peeps because they're my ginger brothers and sisters. But it's like there's so much more that you could have put into this thing, and I just did you really struggle? Is there a lot of stuff in notebooks?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I bet. Because I gotta wonder, do you just not like Perrin? Because he's not in this EP at all.
I gotta be honest with you, Stephen. That's the one song that's actually written that's not on the album.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I started writing a song called Wolf Brother. I still want that song to come out. And something that the Kill and I have talked about even is, a deluxe edition somewhere down the road. But there's so much, just, 14, 15 books, if you include New Spring. Yep. So many characters, so many plot lines, so much I'd really like to include on this that definitely didn't. Perrin is at the top of that list.
Yeah,
I would say Rand is kind of at the top of that list as well. Form and flow, I was able to kind of think about that. Well, here's my Rand song, here's my Land song, but at the same time it's kind of not at the same time. So yes, it was a struggle. By the end of it, I had to kind of have this personal conversation with myself that, well, if I keep doing this album is going to come out long after the show, long after this, and I kind of wanted to, kind of beat the show out a little bit, give us something to listen to while we're going to watch parties and things like that. Yeah. So,
well, it's like I've self-published a couple of books, and you go out there and you read up on writing and junk like that, and you listen to podcasts about writing and junk like that, and one of the things that you hear a lot is you got to kill your babies. Yeah. And when you go back to edit that book, or when you go back to decide what's going to go on a freaking record, you something's got to go. And you gotta kill your babies, and it's tough.
Absolutely.
But so of the three, let's just ask this. Here's a real fanboy question. Okay. Of the three, Perrin, Matt, and Rand, do you have a favorite?
I do. I feel like my answer is probably going to be the most typical of the three, but it is Matt Cawthon.
Matt,
as soon as I said typical, you know exactly where I was going. It's clear.
How do you feel? You've heard the news that the guy who's playing Matt in the first season of the show has already been replaced with a new guy for season 2?
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
It's kind of weird. I feel like, was it Donald Finn, I want to say, right? I think Donald will do a good job. Or it might be, I think I'm mispronouncing his name. I just don't know. But I think he'll do a great job, honestly. I have a lot of faith in the casting director of Wheel of Time, simply because I don't know if you had a shared experience on this, but it's the first time I'd actually seen headshots for people that would play roles. And as soon as I saw them, like, for example, with Marcus and Perrin, as soon as I saw that headshot of Marcus, I was like, oh, that's clearly Perrin. Like, that's and every other thing I've seen with him on screen has just really reinforced that for me.
I did not have that experience. When I think about these characters, I have like Michael Kramer and Kate Redding's voice in my head. So I'm trying to picture characters with that voice. But I have watched that trailer at least 6 times.
Nice.
And I'm in with all of them. I think they all look good. I'm really excited about it. Nice. I'm really hoping it's going to be a good show, and I'm hoping that it's going to be successful enough that they can tell the whole story that they want to tell.
Absolutely.
I did read that it's probably they're trying to do a condensed version of the 15 books, but good luck to them with that. But I think it's going to be something pretty special. I told my wife we got HBO Max and she was looking for something to watch, and somebody suggested Game of Thrones. I told her, I said, no, I read most of those books. It's pretty crazy. You need to be ready for what you're going to see on screen. And she watched it and she fell in love with it. And when it was over, and I said, okay, your next one is going to be Wheel of Time.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, she's not really into that kind of stuff, but for some reason she really liked Game of Thrones.
I think a lot of people actually were like that. A lot of people that were not fantasy fans liked Game of Thrones.
I hear it was kind of popular.
Yeah. I definitely started. I was very late to watching Game of Thrones, and I have still yet to read the books. I do want to sometime. But it was friends of mine that are not fantasy fans whatsoever that finally got me to watch Game of Thrones. So
yeah. Well, I just watched it this year. It's the first time I've seen it, and I read most of the books. I think I got up to the Red Wedding when everybody dies, and I was just like, I'm done. I can't just watch him kill off all my favorite people all the damn time.
Sure.
But yeah.
Oof,
so I told her right away when she started watching, I said, don't get attached to anybody, because chances are they're not going to survive. So all right, let's go back to the EP real quick. Something that always interests me, and I asked Michael Kill about this because he'd been on the show once already. Mm-hmm. I just find, because I used to, back in the day, back in the 90s, I was a musician. I played drums. Okay. And as a drummer, basically, at least my experience was, you come to band practice and the guitar player or the bass player will go, hey, I got a song. And then you just go, okay, here we go. All right, that's the song. It's like all I got to worry about is my drum part.
Sure.
But you're, in essence, even though Michael Kill is putting the beats together and all that, you're putting this thing together yourself.
Sure.
So the thing that I find curious is when it comes to, let's say, for example, the Son of Battles, did you have to I'm trying to wrap my mind around how you work with somebody to come up with a beat for that. Did you already have the flow? And I'm picturing you putting together like a scratch track of the rap with maybe some basic beats, and then you take it to him and say, make something for this. How does that work?
Well, it's a good question. And, in a general sense, let's say with a lot of projects, it really can vary. Sometimes the lyrics do come first. Sometimes the beat does come first. With Wheel of Rhyme, across the entire album, quite honestly, Michael would do the beat first, but I would have, let's say, some input in terms of what we're looking for soundscape. So when we first started this idea, just full transparency, Marilyn was the first song that was actually written and recorded. And Marilyn was the first beat that Michael made for it. The Wheel Weaves was the second. And if you listen to both of those beats, you can hear how they're kind of really on the same page. We started talking about doing the Wheel of Rhyme, and Michael started thinking about fantasy. So he started thinking about, European middle-aged instruments. He started thinking about harps and these sorts of things. And so we were going with those almost exclusively at first. And then, Michael, who has not read The Wheel of Time, really had this mental picture of that. And so we had to sit down and kind of have a conversation about, hey, the Wheel of Time really pulls in a lot of different cultures, really, I would say, does a good job of pulling in the world's cultures almost as a whole. So we started talking about using Japanese instruments, where Son of Battles came in, and that was the third beat that was made. Form and Flow, I want to say it was one of the next, but through those conversations, I was also talking about Watch the Spheres was one of those songs that said this absolutely has to be made. It was actually the last song for the album that was written and recorded, but it was the one that I was asking for since the second or third. I was like, I absolutely want to use this part as a hook. I think it's the one part directly from the books that will work as a hook. And it has to have some kind of Middle Eastern, influences, some of that kind of soundscape. So we were talking about the different instruments and sounds we wanted. Michael would find samples or, instruments that he could use and craft for those sounds, and we would make beats based on those kind of sitting together. A lot of times when he made the beats, we were actually sitting together so I could give him direct input on what he was doing.
Yeah, that's kind of help because you guys are local to each other. Whereas if he's doing something for, somebody on the other side of the country, that's got to be kind of weird.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because when he and I talked, they had just put out that latest 2 weeks notice.
Nice
EP, him and Tribe One.
Yeah.
So that makes me think, because I remember watching a live thing that he put up once, and you're on it playing bass.
Nice.
And at some point, don't you escape from a straitjacket? Where does that come in? Because you could pick locks, you can escape from a straitjacket. Were you raised by a magician?
I was not. More's the pity. I mean, my parents are good at a lot of things. They never escaped from straitjackets. I was the one that introduced that to the family.
Nice.
I have this habit, and you might be able to tell from albums like The Wheel of Rhyme, and it's not the first thing I love that I've made a whole rap album about. Previously I'd done a little EP on Thor and did an EP on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And in that same vein, things that I really love in my personal life, like lockpicking, I tried to find a way to incorporate it in my live stage show at a point. The easiest way that I could think of initially was to escape from handcuffs on stage while rapping. Yeah. It became a big thing for me for a while, and straitjackets came into play because there was a girl named Nicole here in Charlotte at the Milestone Club, actually, that was at a show one night. And after the show, we were sitting at a bar and talking, and she's like, I really like the handcuff thing. Have you ever thought about straitjackets? And no, I never had at any point into that realm. But I did have a very good friend named Johnny Millwater, he's a local comedian, but he actually tours nationally. He does a lot of Carnival Cruise Lines and shows out there on those. And he actually owned a straitjacket because he did a lot of magician stuff when he was younger before he went full-fledged into comedy. So me and him started having a conversation about it. He wound up selling me an old straitjacket, and I got on YouTube and learned how to escape a straitjacket, and it just became a thing. So
nice. Very nice. Yeah. So what got you into, what made you decide, hey, I'm gonna be a musician. I'm gonna get up and perform in front of people?
That's a good question. I guess it was really kind of a gradual progression. In high school, it started off just listening to a lot of rap and rapping along with it, and then continuing to rap along with it after the song was cut off. And, through that, I had a couple friends approach me just about my voice. They're like, you should keep doing that. And it was that little bit of encouragement that I really needed, because somewhere in the back of my brain, I really just wanted to anyway, but I needed that little extra validation to say, I'm not crazy for wanting this. And so I started, pretty much right out of high school, starting to try and write my own songs, and do things like that with varied success, ups or downs, but not terribly. Well, I guess it was, I was about 25, 26 when I met Kill, but I had already been making some of my own songs at that point, and it was actually a friend in Japan at the time, somebody I went to high school with, and they went to Japan after high school, but she stayed actually more in tune with local hip-hop than I did, and she pointed out Michael Kill's music to me over a decade ago, and happened to make a post about him on MySpace, if that really dates me. And so we found out, hey, we're right beside each other. We should get up and hang out sometime, and started making music ever since. So
is that how the Thought Criminals
that is? Yeah, that is. The Thought Criminals as an entity has shifted a lot over time, but the Thought Criminals actually already existed in one form or another before I joined. And I don't think Michael would consider it the full-fledged Thought Criminals until, the 2011 era, but it already went through some shifts at that point. So
cool. Yeah, you guys ever going to get back and do a Thought Criminals thing?
I think we will. I don't know if it'll be under the Thought Criminals, but I do think Michael and I have some music that will probably be not too far in the future, as well as I know he's working on some solo stuff, even as recently as this weekend, and making some really good stuff. So I'm excited when that comes out. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to some new Michael Kill. He's taking his time.
Quality takes time.
That's true. That's true. So so with this EP, I've noticed, well, let me ask this first. Do you consider yourself a nerdcore rapper, or just, because I tell people, and I'm going to be talking to an indie rapper. That's what I referred you to. But some of your stuff is very nerdy. So I didn't know how I'm a rapper or a nerdcore or whatever happens to be.
So, I mean, maybe I gravitate a little towards that last statement, but I do consider myself a nerdcore rapper. I don't shy away from the term. I'll be honest, when I first started rapping, it was not to be a nerdcore rapper. And quite honestly, I didn't know nerdcore rap existed when I started getting associated with nerdcore rap. It just so happens that if you write 3 or more songs by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you're out of the thug rap game forever. And I didn't know that. But no, I listened to a lot of just, radio rap in high school. It's the reason I started to rap, as well as, other, indie rap and these sorts of things. I didn't realize nerdcore rap was a thing. I just wanted to write about video games and comic books, and all of a sudden I found out, hey, there's a whole world of people doing this, and it was really nice to be included and part of the family. Yeah, I was just I grew up in freaking Kansas, small town Kansas. So as far as hip hop that I was exposed to growing up was whatever was on MTV, because they sure really weren't playing it on the radio. Sure.
Around here. So it was like Beastie Boys and Run DMC, maybe the occasional Public Enemy. And then, of course, Yo MTV Raps came around, and that introduced me to stuff like Tribe Called Quest and stuff like that. But I was just watching. I had to shut it off to come do this. I got a free trial of freaking Apple TV. Okay. And come to find out, the Beastie Boys story is on there. So I was watching something. Nice. And I gotta listen to that License to Ill. I was in junior high when that freaking album came out.
Oh man, such a classic.
I remember being in our old school computer lab with my Sony Walkman, listening to freaking License to Ill, trying to type the lyrics out onto a word processor. For some reason, I thought that was cool. I don't know why.
That's so good. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
King, I had another question about the EP, and now it's not. It's just kind of floated away like smoke.
You got Bill fired.
I don't know. Let's talk about the show. You looking forward to the show?
I'm very much looking forward to the show.
It's coming up. That's coming up soon.
Yeah, like 2 weeks. Not even. Yeah, it's huge. I don't know if I've ever looked forward to a show more than I've looked forward to this one. It almost scares me, and I don't want to put it on too high of a pedestal, because that's dangerous. But
until this show, I never really realized what kind of fan community is out there in regard to the Wheel of Time. Heck, when that trailer dropped a couple of weeks ago, they're up and down on Twitter talking about they're having freaking watch parties and like hundreds of people getting together online to watch the trailer together, and they are very active online, and it's a very neat thing to see. And so far, they all seem to really love the trailer. So it gives me hope for the show. And it looks like we're going to get like stuff from book 1, book 2, and book 3 in that first season.
Yes.
That's some crazy stuff. Stuff. What's weird is it kind of hit me the other day, because they announced that in season 2, who was going to be playing Elaine. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, but she's introduced in the first book. So
exactly.
I think I'm more curious at this point to see how they're putting this story together.
Sure.
Because I think we're going to see some stuff from New Spring in this first season. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like Logain is going to be a much bigger character right out the gate, which you barely saw him in the first book. He was in a cage, you know?
Exactly.
He didn't have a line in the first book.
Exactly.
But you think about that first book, though, and you're like, nowadays, shows like Game of Thrones and the kind of shows that people binge, if they made a season that followed that first book exactly, I don't think people would be into it. I think fans of the book would love it, but I think people who are just, you know, looking for the next Game of Thrones, they'd be like, they're just going places. You know, they're just fleeing. Exactly. And the Trollocs, I'm really happy about the way they look.
Yes.
Really disappointed that we didn't get to see Loyal in the trailer. I think it worries me. It's like, are they not showing him because he doesn't look great, or are they just saving that? You know, it's that last tease. We're gonna keep him for the show. And
sure. I wonder how much. I mean, I figure he'll be in the first season a decent bit, but I also wonder how much he will be in the first season. And I do hope it's towards the latter. I think if they could pull off Trollocs, I think he'll look amazing too. So. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a scene in the trailer where they're all standing in front of the Waygate, and the Waygate's outside, and there's a figure with them that somebody pointed out online. That's got to be Loyal right there.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, he must be standing off in the distance because he looks like he's about this, or he's crouched because he's supposed to be really tall.
He is, but you know, if he's not as tall as he was in the books, it's kind of like with Rand. You know, I've seen a lot of people online talking about, well, Rand's not taller than everyone else.
Yeah.
The show is ruined for me. And,
whatever.
I feel like if you get caught up on those details so much, there's not possibly a show that could be made you're gonna enjoy. Just, you know, real talk. I'm excited about the changes, which I don't think is a popular thought, but I just don't think you could do a line-for-line Wheel of Time show and it'd be fun visually to watch. So
no, I think anybody who goes into an adaptation TV show that's based off a book or a comic, hoping that it's going to be a scene-by-scene, you're going to be disappointed every single time, because there's stuff that works in a comic book that doesn't work on the movie screen. There's stuff that works in a prose book that's not going to, you know, it's why these different, you know, things are out there, because there's different things you can do in each one, and you have to play with those strengths. And I think the TV show is going to be amazing. I'm interested in, because, you know, you think about a character like Rand, for example, and I'm looking at this kid that's playing Rand, and I'm like, okay, he looks like a innocent, wide-eyed farm boy, but is he going to be able to play a hard ass, you know, freaking Dragon Reborn later on down the series?
That's true.
Same with Perrin. You know, Perrin's supposed to be kind of just this slow, methodical, you know, but then you know, that's the thing about those three characters, those three boys, is that as the books go along, I'm listening to a Rand chapter, and I'm like, Rand's the best, man. He's awesome. He's my favorite. And then they go because later on down the road, you know, they all three separate, and Matt is in charge of that. God, I can't think of the name of that group now. It's like his little group of soldiers.
The Red Hand.
Yeah, the Band of the Red Hand.
Yeah.
So I'm so looking forward to that. So then I get a Matt chapter like that. I'm like, no, Matt's my favorite. He's the coolest. Yeah, and then I get a Perrin chapter, and he's back in Emmons Field protecting them from freaking Trollocs and just kicking ass. And I'm like, Perrin's my favorite. You know, Robert Jordan was really good about that, and he's really good about just these characters change so much.
They do.
Over the course of this book, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happen on the TV screen.
Absolutely. Night to day, back to night again.
Mm-hmm.
Back to, you know, one of those Alaskan, you know, 36-hour days. It's funny. I said earlier that Matt is probably my favorite character, and he is. I'm not backpedaling on that, but I think it's worth pointing out to what you just said. Matt is not my favorite character until about midway through book 3, and I can't stand Matt before that point. Actually. So it's wild to have a series that you can say, well, you can read about 2.5 books before you actually get to where this character becomes my favorite character for the rest of the series. That just doesn't happen with other things.
Once they start incorporating all that stuff where he can suddenly, you know, remember stuff from past lives and fight, and when he starts freaking leading battles and, you know, strategizing and picking where the armies are going to go and that kind of stuff. And for me, though, with Matt, what really did it for me, and I think it's coming up in the third book, when he's in Tar Valon, he's been healed. Yes. And he's hanging out watching the young warders in training, and he's basically giving them a lot of crap.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy who's training him, he's like, well, pick up this quarterstaff and, see what you can do. And he just starts kicking their butts. Yes. And the guy's like, see, one farmer with the quarterstaff can be more dangerous than, and I'm like, yeah. Yes. Matt's kicking butt. Yeah, I think that's the moment that I went, all right, Matt's pretty damn cool.
Exactly. That is, I feel like, the defining Matt moment. It's like the defining moment where his character shifts, into something new, and it really just expands from there. I don't think he's the son of battles at that moment. He's still the gambler. He's the Dark One's luck, and has that on his side. But the role he steps into is just truly, truly incredible. It's so good.
That moment is more like showing that Matt can take care of himself if necessary. Matt can step up to some people and take him down if he needs to. And it's just, it's funny when we talk about stuff like this and just little memories. I just suddenly remembered that at some point that little kid starts following him around.
Yes. Yes. Oliver. That's right. Yes.
And then he's like Matt's destined to marry the daughter of the Nine Moons or something like that. And man, they changed so much.
They do.
From that first book. It's just crazy. And,
they do.
I haven't read, I don't know if you've read a lot of new fantasy.
Not as much as I would like, to be honest. So.
Neither have I. I read, because of Brandon Sanderson, I listened to his Mist books. They're pretty good.
Mistborn? They're amazing. Yes.
The Mistborn books, those are pretty good. And then I don't even remember the name of the trilogy I listened to last year, but it was really dark.
Okay.
And did not end well, and it really. I wish I did an episode about the first book a while back. One of my listeners is listening, and he's beating his head because it was the episode that got him listening to the show because he loves that book.
Nice.
I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, yeah. So first 3 episodes are dropping on Friday the 19th.
They are.
I took the day off.
Nice. I'm a little envious. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Well, I had a bunch of vacations saved up, so I thought I'll use it around Thanksgiving.
Nice.
Take advantage of that holiday. So I said, well, if I'm going to do that, take Friday off first. Stay home, watch the Wheel of Time.
Smart move.
Now, I know some people when they watch shows like this on streaming, you got Netflix that drops the entire season at one time. Mm-hmm. And then everybody else does it. Well, they're starting to do this thing now where they drop the first 2 or 3 episodes on the same day, and then the rest of the season you get every week. Mm. How do you prefer watching your shows?
I like the way Amazon's doing it. I like incrementally. Netflix is cool, but it really, especially with the internet and how we all like to talk about the experiences that we all share at this point. We want to live tweet them as we watch them. It becomes this race, in my opinion, to just ravenously consume this media instead of enjoy it. I'm like this about video games these days. I will not enjoy a game I really love and just play it like it's my job because I'm so worried that I'm going to have something spoiled for me if it's story heavy or something like that. Yep. To where, releasing 3 episodes at once after everybody's been waiting for it this long, I think is really, really great. But I'm glad they're stopping there. And we have at least like a week buffer that we can all talk about that, enjoy it, get ramped up for the next one. And, I don't know. I think it adds a lot. It adds to the conversation. It adds to the community to be able to kind of go through it slowly together.
I agree. We saw that with WandaVision. Yes. That was a show that I think if they dropped the whole thing at one time and I watched it all over a day, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it much, but the experience of watching an episode and then spending a week talking to people and your theories and what does this mean and pointing out all the little mysteries and then finding out the next week that everything you thought was wrong, it's more of an experience that way. And I'm really looking forward to watching this. And then you get something to look forward to every week.
You do.
I remember when Sweet Tooth. I don't know if you watched Sweet Tooth on Netflix.
Amazing. It was so good.
Yeah, loved it. In one day, and then it was over, and I was sad.
Yeah, we took a while to watch it, even with it being on Netflix, but that's Netflix for you, you know. I definitely was wary of getting on Twitter while we were watching Sweet Tooth.
Yeah. That's it's a joy and a curse at the same time, because there's always those a-holes out there that love to be the first person to spoil the entire mystery to everybody.
Absolutely.
It's their favorite thing in the world. I can't wait to tell everybody that Luke is or Darth Vader is Luke's father. You know, it's like, Jesus, settle down.
By the way, Dumbledore dies. Just wanted to let you know.
You know, there's a funny story I like to tell when they did the new Star Wars trilogy. J.J. Abrams, the first one came out, and we just don't go to the theater much anymore because it's just way too damn expensive.
Sure.
And when it finally came on DVD, the day before I went out to get it so I could watch it, my youngest daughter says, well, you know that Han Solo dies in the movie, right? And I just looked at her and said, why would you tell me that? I have been successfully avoiding all these spoilers for almost a year. And she didn't know. She was young enough that she didn't know. And so, yeah. But luckily enough, it's still kind of, I almost forgot about it in the movie. And then he's standing there on the bridge and I just went, oh, crap, he's going to die.
Yeah. You pretty much know it's coming at that point, but you don't want to know. That's rough. That was almost spoiled for me just by an interview with Harrison Ford, because I don't think he exactly spelled out that he dies in it, but I'm pretty sure he explicitly said, I only agreed to do this if they kill Han, or if they kill Han Solo. And I'm like,
yeah, he wanted to die in the first one, and then he wanted to die in it's like he wanted to die in all the movies. He tried to get George Lucas to kill him off in the first one, and then when the second one came around and he goes into the carbonite, he's like, okay, this is where you kill me. And it's, what's his deal? What's his problem?
I'm not sure. And then meanwhile, in real life, he's like indestructible. Didn't he go down in a plane while filming that and just got out with a sprained ankle? It was like, oh, okay.
Jumping in his plane and rescuing people off mountaintops and jump like that. Freaking guy. So one of the things that Michael Kill and I talked about when he was on, and it's a little bit different now.
Okay.
But the whole COVID thing.
Okay.
Right? When's the last time you went out and performed live?
Oh, wow. Early last year. So it's been a while. Yeah. I probably had a show right before we started locking down. I want to say, around February. And even when we did that show, there was this thought of, you're seeing everything escalate and ramp up. Places hadn't started closing down yet, but it was almost clear, like, you could imagine, it wasn't a far-fetched imagination to say, oh, this is about to start happening. So even at that show, there was this moment of, this might be our last show for a bit. We made sure to make the most of it. But I haven't performed since then. I haven't done any live stream shows or anything like that.
Yeah, miss it?
I do. I enjoy performing live, and I've intentionally not done any live stream shows, and maybe that's a misstep, but one of my favorite things about performing is getting out and getting to connect with people.
Yeah, live stream shows are different. You don't have somebody standing right there in front of the stage.
Exactly.
That's the two things I always enjoyed most about playing in a band was playing live and then being in the studio recording something. That was, practices I could do without, but we always practice 3 times a week.
Oh, that's a lot of practice.
Oh yeah, we were serious. We were gonna, I joke all the time that I didn't go to college because I was gonna be a rock star. That was the career path for me. And in high school, my guidance counselor would say, well, you need a backup plan.
Sure.
And I would say, but if you have a backup plan, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Ooh.
But I'm not a rock star.
They don't believe in themselves.
Exactly. That's how I felt. And I'm not a rock star, but I'm fine with it. I'm cool with it. Whatever.
I kind of had the same plan in high school, and still rolling with that until I decided otherwise. So
I'm just, I'm always amazed with people who, they have that idea in school. I'm going to be this, and then they just go out and frickin' do it. And I guess I just didn't have that kind of drive, because after a while, as much as I enjoyed playing the music, after a while it got to feel like a job. And it was a job I wasn't getting paid for.
Sure.
And I just decided, you know what? Why am I even doing it then? If I'm not enjoying it, just stop.
Oh, absolutely.
So I stopped. And I spent almost 2 decades not ever playing the drums. And just recently got together with the boys and got back there for a little bit. And it's like, damn, I can still remember how to do this.
Nice.
It's pretty fun.
I think a lot of people, like, you have that direct experience, so I know you know, but I think a lot of people don't realize there's a big difference between making music and playing music and being a musician. And the fact that being a musician is this extra step of all these extra things that might not necessarily have anything to do with playing music. You know, do you promote yourself? You know, do you book yourself? Or you taking all these extra steps to make sure your music is heard? Or you getting out and doing this promo? And to be honest, there's a lot of those steps I don't enjoy myself.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I've heard some people that, do I like the actual music they put out? No. Have they went really far with that music because they're really good at all those other things? Yes. And I got a lot of respect for them for those reasons. So, but
it's like ultimately you need 3 things. You need talent to a certain extent.
Sure.
Because you got to be able to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
You need to be committed. You need to have that drive. You need to, like you said, know how to promote yourself and get out there in front of people. And you need to be able to sell to a certain extent. The nice thing about being in a band is that as long as one person in the band could do that, I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to worry about that part. There was always one guy in the band that would go out and do all that. So that was the nice thing about being in a band. But the third thing you need is just freaking dumb luck. Because the talent and the drive is fine. It'll get you to a certain point. But if you're not lucky enough to get in front of whoever you need to get in front of, there's a lot of really, really good bands and really good musicians that are just not a lot of people know about because they haven't had that luck. And I'll tell you what, people who are successful, a lot of these, you get some of these people that have made it. And you talk about that luck, and some people will admit that's true, and other people just pisses them off. Luck had nothing to do with it. I was talented, and I went out there and I worked my tail off. Yes, you did.
Sure.
But you were lucky enough to get in, to get in front of the right person at the right time.
Absolutely.
Because the talent and drive, you need that. But there are 100,000 other musicians out there with just as much talent and drive. And in this day and age, it's easier than ever to make this stuff and get it out there in front of people. I think about that now, being a musician back in the 90s, and we had to go into a recording studio and put stuff on a cassette tape and call book local clubs and go to, hey, well, you still do that. You go to open mics and all that kind of junk, but as far as you couldn't say, go check me out on YouTube.
Exactly.
But at the same time, that makes people lazy. The people, the audience can be kind of lazy. Would you agree? It's like, I got 16 different bands I can check out online.
Yeah. There's an oversaturation in a lot of aspects, and there's a big shift in a lot of things. I don't know if people, let's say in a real general sense, I don't know if people go to shows the same way they used to. I don't know if certain things appeal to people the same way they used to. Honestly, I think, and this is a little bit of a deviation from the original topic, but still in the same vein, I don't think people listen to song lengths the same way they used to even. That's why I almost like EPs more than LPs.
Yeah.
In most instances, because I think the attention span is more rapid fire. I want to be able to enjoy this much quicker and then, move on to the next thing because everything is so immediate right at our fingers. I remember when I first got on the internet and would get on IRC chat and spend an hour to download an MP3. And you best believe I wore that MP3 out. I waited that hour for it at a 14.4 modem with my father picking up the phone and interrupting the connection once in the middle. But now I get a whole EP as soon as I click on it, and I could get the next EP just as easy. So Things have changed.
It makes more sense. What would you rather put out? A 4-song EP with 4 great freaking songs on it, or back in the day when a record company would tell you, all right, you got 5 really good songs, but you need 9 to make an entire album. How many albums have you bought that have just 4 or 5 just great songs on them and the rest are just fillers? And you don't have to do that now, which is great. You kill your babies and you put your best ones on there and you put that stuff out there. And then maybe one day somebody's going to be like, I like this guy enough that he can put all his B-side stuff on one collection and throw that out there and say, this is what I was doing back then. And, I don't know if you've ever heard the theory of 1,000 true fans. Everybody needs 1,000 true fans. A true fan is somebody that's going to buy anything you put out.
Sure.
You got 1,000 of them, you're set for life.
Gotcha.
Then all you got to do is put stuff out often enough that these 1,000 people will buy your stuff, and then you're set. That's all you need anymore. That's something I've heard quite often is the 1,000 true fan theory. And
gotcha.
You've got true fans. You got folks that will pick and choose what you put out there, and then you got folks that whatever you put out there, they're going to buy it. That's one of your true fans.
Sure.
You just need 1,000 of them.
Just 1,000.
There's 5.5 billion people in the world. You can find 1,000.
I'm sure I could. Maybe I'll take out a Facebook ad or something after this. But
Facebook.
No, Womp womp. I am blessed to say I definitely have some true fans out there, and I've had a lot of fans get at me after putting out the Wheel of Rhyme and mention to me how I've never read the Wheel of Time at all. I was just excited you're putting out an album.
Yep.
And a couple of them have said, now I'm interested in reading the Wheel of Time. And to me, that's the biggest compliment. I don't even know if they realize it, but that's the biggest compliment I could possibly get on this. If one person reads the Wheel of Time because of it, job is done. I can hang up the hat.
That's a commitment too. Something that you put out, somebody said, I'm going to read 15 books now. It's not like freaking Lord of the Rings. All right, I'll read these 3 books. It's
absolutely.
Like, nope, I'm going to read 15 books.
Yeah, you're going to be in the trenches for the greater part of a year. So
that's where the Audible subscription comes in.
Absolutely.
That's what makes it great. Rosamund Pike, who's playing Moraine, she just recorded you can get that on Audible now. She's reading The Eye of the World. I don't know if she's going to end up doing. Yeah, I think it's out. Nice. I don't know if she's going to end up doing the whole series, but I'll tell you what, that's what I liked about Michael Kramer and God, why can't I think of her name right now?
Kate Redding.
Kate Redding.
Yeah.
I was listening, like I said, I take my kids to school every morning and I'm listening to the book. And at one point it switches from Michael Kramer to Kate Redding. And my daughter goes, what, that now there's a girl on here. And I explained to her, I said, yeah, some of these chapters are from the point of view of a man and some of them are from the point of view of a woman. Yeah. And so they switched it up. And I think that's pretty cool because I've listened to books where the main character is a woman and it's being read by a man. And that makes no sense to me at all.
Sure. Absolutely.
I think they handled it right. It's funny, though, in some of the early books, how they both pronounce certain fake words that Robert Jordan made up, how they pronounce them differently. And I think as the books go on, I think some of the directors are like, okay, you guys are saying these wrong, get on the same page.
I definitely noticed that. And one thing I noticed through just starting to kind of dip toes into the massive Wheel of Time fan community is there's even, just animosity is way too strong, but there's just a little bit of, let's say particularity about pronunciation of the way they pronounce things. So if I'm being honest, there's a lot of times I try and avoid using specific names because I'm thinking in my head, somebody is going to not like the way I pronounce this. I'm used to saying Tarvalin, for example. I was listening to a podcast the other day where someone was saying Tarvalon, and then I was immediately on internet.
Yeah.
How do we really say this, y'all? I don't know.
I mean, the way I figure it is Robert Jordan was still alive when they started recording the audiobooks. So if they were mispronouncing stuff in the audiobooks, I would think he would say something, so but at the same time, the Harry Potter books, depending on whether you listen to the American version of the audiobooks or the British version of the audiobooks, I feel like one pronounces Voldemort different than the other. One says Voldemort and the other says Voldemort. So I think she meant it to be Voldemort, but then because of the audiobooks and the movies, it's like, all right, well, everybody's saying Voldemort, so that's what we got to do. But it is interesting like that because I still hear people. I don't know how into comics you might be. Hellblazer with John Constantine, which I've never actually read, but I still hear people pronounce him as John Constantine, and I'm pretty sure it's John Constantine. But that always makes my ears wrinkle when I hear somebody do that. So I can imagine, heck, that episode I put out about the Eye of the World because I recorded it a few weeks ago, and just recently I was actually putting it together, and I realized that at one point in the episode I'm saying Egwene. And then later in the episode, I'm saying Egwene. So even in one sitting, I'm pronouncing names incorrectly. So
it's easy to do, particularly with those fantasy names and fantasy words. Look at the old tongue, and I know somebody out there can pronounce all that perfectly, but not me. I'm not going to be the one. And
it's like those people that can speak Klingon.
There we go.
And then they've learned Dothraki. And now people are going to be speaking the old tongue.
Absolutely. I know at least on Twitter of time, they have started to decipher some of these songs that have come out from the score from the show, which apparently have old tongue in them. And they're already hard at work translating all these songs, which is impressive. And frankly, I'm just impressed that they thought enough to put the old tongue in these songs. I think that shows a level of dedication to the source material that I'm personally excited about. It's a really good sign to me. So,
well, the goal at this point is to get one of these songs from the Wheel of Rhyme into something associated with the show. If it's like a freaking bonus feature or something where they're doing like a montage of behind the scenes and they're playing like freaking the Son of Battles or something, that would be pretty sweet.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. I'll need to get on the phone and contact Donald Finn today. He might hang up on me because I'm mispronouncing his name. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, exciting time to be alive.
Yeah, but let's talk about the album cover real quick for your EP. Sure. Okay, so is that okay? So basically, I'm looking at it right now. It's a recreation of the Eye of the World book cover. Mm-hmm. Now, is that Michael Kill as Lan?
It is absolutely Michael Kill as Lan. Yes.
And then that's you as Moraine, and you're holding a little. Well, we called him. I don't know if it's PC. We called them ghetto blasters when I was a kid, but now they call them boom boxes.
Oh yeah.
Boom boxes is probably more proper.
Probably more current, but I've heard them both ways and enjoy it. Yeah.
Who did that? That was
Ryan Paul Hodgerson. Okay. Amazing artist. He does a really fun web comic called Slackmatic. He and I actually worked on a comic book years back when I put out my last album, Rebirth. If you buy it digitally, it actually comes with that comic called Rise of the Aborted Clone. But I sent him the worst stick figures you could imagine with like kind of a script out, and he made an amazing comic out of it. Made it look like I had some talent along the way. I mean, he's that good of an artist. But when I first had this idea, I had a couple different cover art ideas in my head, but when Michael and I started talking and it came up, what about us just as this Eye of the World cover with you as that really big knight there? He doesn't know the characters. I'm like, you could be the really giant knight there. I want to be the petite girl on that horse. And he's like, he laughed, he belly laughed, and it's like, yeah, this has definitely got to be it. So I sent the idea to Ryan. Ryan said it's one of the hardest ideas he's ever done, but he enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, it's done really well. Yeah. I mean, there's no mistaking what that's, it's really good. And the Wheel of Rhyme, come on, that's genius. I love that. I love that title. That actually reminds me of the question I was going to ask earlier, because typically when y'all in the nerdcore genre put something out, there's always somebody else on there with you. And I was really quite surprised that Michael Kill didn't do any didn't do any rapping on this, and I had to assume he's probably just never read the books. Is that the case?
It would be a very fair assumption. That's exactly what it is. And one thing with nerdcore, and I don't want to be delicate with this, let's say, but there are a lot of nerdcore fan projects where, they become a little bit of Wikipedia raps, let's say. You jump on a project and maybe you haven't seen that source material. You're not a fan, but you're a great rapper and you're a friend of the person doing it. And then all of a sudden you're trying to study the subject to appeal to those fans. And Michael and I kind of talked about that early on. I mentioned to him about being on this album, because Michael obviously is an amazing rapper, just like he's an amazing producer. I would have loved to have him on it, but we both kind of came to that conclusion of, this is one of those topics you really should be a fan, of, and that's why at the end I do have, Witch Boy, Lil Yazzie on it. They're both Wheel of Time fans, both big Brandon Sanderson fans. Is actually how we kind of fell into finding out they both love Wheel of Time as well. But beyond that, I didn't really want to have anyone on it that wasn't an actual Wheel of Time fan, let's say.
Well, and there's not a lot of nerdcore rapping that's done about fantasy novels. There's Game of Thrones, but that's because of the show.
Sure.
It seems like nerdcore kind of focuses on it's either comics, what's kind of going on in the pop culture, wrestling, and then just MC Frontal likes to do old video game stuff, or video games in general. A lot of nerdcore does a lot of stuff about video games, which is, you talked about some of the people who listen to the Wheel of Rhyme and have never read the books, but they just wanted to listen to something that you put out. That's, Adam Warrock would put stuff out about video games. I'm not a video game guy, but I'd listen to the songs and really enjoy them. Yeah. And, He did a Game of Thrones, I think, EP at one point, and Kirby Crackle did a Game of Thrones song. Loved him, never really got him, and then I'm watching the show, and it's like, no, I'm understanding some of these references now. Kind of funny, but
you became Captain America there. I understood that reference.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to folks picking this up, I would always. I direct people to the Bandcamp.
Sure.
I remember Michael Kill just put out that it's now on Spotify. Mm-hmm. And I did buy the album on Bandcamp, but I was really glad that it was put on Spotify because that's what I got on my phone. Sure. And I have yet to been able, I can't get my freaking phone to sync up with the Spotify on my computer. So songs that are not on Spotify will show up on my damn phone. I can't get it to work. I've done everything. So when I listened to the EP in my car, I had to pull up the Bandcamp app and just listen to it through there. But you make more through Bandcamp than you do through Spotify, right? Somebody buys the EP through Bandcamp, you're getting more of that than if they just listen one time through the EP. Right?
Yes.
Because you're getting like what, half a penny or something per listen.
Half a penny is generous.
Yeah, that's which is pretty crazy. So anybody who's listening, I'm gonna put the links in the show notes, but go buy this sucker on Bandcamp. What's it going for on Bandcamp right now?
It's $5.
$5. Come on.
That's it. Yeah.
$5. There's 9 songs on it. One is an introduction. One is a remix. But still, $5. That's a good price. And you want to support Sulfur, get it on Bandcamp. And then if you want to listen to it on Spotify, that's fine. But
I appreciate you. I will say it's more important for me if you like Wheel of Time or if you like nerdcore rap, just listen to it. It's okay to go to Spotify. It's okay to go to Tidal. And if you like it, you want to have a copy of it, please go to my Bandcamp. Easiest way to get there is just sulfurmusic.com. SULFUR. Go straight to my Bandcamp.
See, that's how you get them 1,000 true fans. Yeah, they start listening through Spotify, and then they're like, I really like this guy. I'm going to throw some support his way. Then they go to Bandcamp and they buy it. Yep.
Absolutely. I just want people to hear it, quite honestly, particularly, if you're a Wheel of Time fan or, maybe you just like nerdcore rap, and maybe you're a future Wheel of Time fan and you don't know it yet. So
has anybody from Dragon Mount reached out to you yet?
Nobody has yet. I actually sent them an email as well. I'm hoping I can get their attention. But at the same time, it's a real busy time for Wheel of Time fans. I can't put my finger on why, but
I don't know. They're crazy. They're I read just the other day that they have communities that are renting out like freaking theaters to play those first 3 episodes on the 19th. That's
exciting.
It's crazy exciting because there's a lot of hardcore fans for a lot of different things out there, but I haven't seen it like this, like with Wheel of Time. It's
sure,
and it's fun because I said that I was gonna finally go back and read all the books once they came out, and I think the last one was in 2013.
Yeah,
and yet here it is 2021, and I'm just starting to get back into it, and it's because of the show. But it was a huge part of my life for many years. It was just a big part of my life, and it's going to be fun to see it adapted on TV. I agree.
Reading as a kid, it's funny. I'm a pretty tattooed individual now, but just for perspective and context, I remember when I was reading as a kid, I looked at that old school Wheel of Time logo, and I thought to myself, even 12, 13. I'm going to get this tattooed on my body at some point. It was the first thing in my brain that I knew I was going to get tattooed on me. And it wasn't until I finished the series a few years back that I finally got that tattoo. And by this point, I had to find space for it. I got it directly on my elbow, actually, because I'm just running out of real estate. Yeah. But, just think about thoughts like that, how long it's been with me, how long. If you had asked me at any point between that age and now in my 30s, hey, what's your favorite fantasy? Oh, it's definitely the Wheel of Time. I didn't have to finish it to feel that way. Yep. And it doesn't disappoint at the end. I'll put it that way. So.
Yep. Yeah, Dragonlance for me was the gateway.
Nice.
And then Wheel of Time was the reward.
There we go. Kind of same. And I like Dragonlance. I remember Raceland as a character was always one of my favorites. But once I started reading Wheel of Time, I really didn't look back.
Yeah, it's hard to compare.
It is. It's got so many roots in. Just the world around us as well, all the way down to little details like the illuminators. So think about things like that. Yeah. The illuminators and their fireworks and that whole thing for me was just really cool. Not something that we see in real life, but it's this embodiment into the fantasy world, and the way to pull it, or the way the dragon is a reference to a person, and it's not this mythological creature flying around and breathing fire. Yeah. All felt like really creative reinventions of, things that we see in fantasy, or references we see in fantasy, but done differently, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and the white cloaks, it's interesting listening to the books now, and it's like, wow, these guys are just ultimately, if you if you don't believe everything they believe in, then you're just automatically an evil dark friend, period. It's just straight up black and white for them, and I find it very interesting. I never put it together back then, but I find it very interesting that they wear white cloaks.
Yes.
What was he trying to say there? I wonder. But it's like
message.
You see that all the time online. These people that are like, if you're not with us, then you're against us. Plain and simple. There's no middle ground. We're not going to listen to your ideas. If you're not going to believe what we believe, then you are an evil son of a bitch. And we're going to kill you for it. And that's what these guys are. And you just hate them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I got to say, I really enjoy the little glimmer we've got of white cloaks so far in the show. I've seen some back and forth on the costumes, and I actually really love them. It wasn't what I expected when I first saw it. I was like, well, this is not what I pictured at all. But from just looking at it for longer than 2 seconds, I really, really love it. And like one of the last trailers, there was just this real brief clip of one of the white cloaks putting an Aes Sedai ring on the side, and there was just a bunch of Aes Sedai rings already there, and then it clips to, an Aes Sedai being burned. Yeah. And I'm like, these, the white cloaks weren't so much of a joke in the books, but I kind of laughed at them a lot of times. Yeah. Like, oh, these guys are a little harmless, right? Does not appear like that in the show.
No. Yeah, It's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. And for my listeners, you know that the week after those first 3 episodes drop, jump over to the Streaming Fool. I'm going to be talking about all 3 episodes over there. So
there we go. I will be there.
That's what I'm going to be doing on Friday.
Nice.
Watch an episode, jump over to the computer, record something. Go watch the second episode, jump over to the computer, record something. So I took the day off.
That's awesome.
We'll see if I got the stamina. I can only talk for so long.
Too many. I believe in you, Steven. You got it.
I don't smoke anymore, but too many years of smoking is kind of ruin the old throat.
Well, I'm going to listen while smoking. Just
right on. Right on. I used to back in like 2006, 2007. I had podcasted back then. Then I stopped for like 10 years. But back then I did smoke. And so it wasn't uncommon to hear me lighting up, you know, as I was podcasting. Don't do that anymore, though. I miss it.
Close.
So you play bass.
Mm-hmm.
You rap.
Mm-hmm.
You've written web comics.
Mm-hmm.
What other talents you got?
What other talents do I got? I make a mean omelet, Steven. It's really good. Onions, peppers, cheese. It's hard to just laundry list talents, I suppose. I play guitar, bass, drums, but none of those I would say well. You know, I have made beats, but there's a reason you've never heard them. You know, so there's a lot of things I do like that. But you know, I've also I like to pick locks in my free time, as you know. I have started to move from there into safe cracking. Nice. So I'm trying to learn safe cracking and get that under my belt. You know, and I do a little bit of writing here and there, but nothing that I've ever really ran with yet and sat down and spent some time with it. And that's kind of something I would like to sit down and spend some time with going forward. But yeah, there's probably other things I'm just not thinking of right now. But free time, I listen to podcasts and play games.
Yeah, so. Nice. And then you got Michael Kill.
Yes.
He can make the beats. He can play guitar. You just hate that guy sometimes.
I mean, I love him and I hate him.
He made me call him Mr. Kill the entire time.
Did you?
No. He's a nice guy. I like him.
Oh yeah, I love Michael. He's a brother. I will say that I've never seen anybody make beats as good as Michael, as fast as Michael.
Yeah.
You know, there was the album I did before this, many years, you know, between this album and my last, but he did beats on my last album. And one of those songs was really just this moment. I was hanging out with him. We were talking about things, and I was like, there's no way you could flip the MacGyver theme into a beat. It was almost like a challenge, and I was pleasantly surprised that he could, but it was definitely a moment where I was like, there's no way you could just do that. It's not possible to do. And he had done it in 5 to 10 minutes and done.
That's funny.
Yeah, so don't ever challenge Michael unless you secretly want that beat to exist, like I do. So.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So looking at your Bandcamp, you have the Wheel of Rhyme up here, and you have Rebirth from 2015.
Yes.
But you said you did a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and a couple other things. Where's all that stuff?
They're hidden right now. I thought about putting them back on there with Wheel of Rhyme coming out, but there was a point where I, kind of moved a lot of my older stuff to private. I've been making music for a long time, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna move a couple of these just off, like discontinued kind of thought. I might bring them back at some point, but I do like the thought of things being, there's a time frame to them. Enjoy them, get them, make sure you get them. Because if you don't, 10 years.
It's like the Disney Vault.
Yeah. No, but I might bring it back at some point.
Stuff's coming out of the Sulfur Vault.
Exactly. That's kind of the other thought, in the vein where you're talking about, killing your babies and these sorts of things. Some of this older stuff might still come back out as one cumulative kind of release at some point, like some of the best of these sorts of things. One of my favorite, and probably one of the songs I did most off that Thor album was I had a Thor drinking song, Drink Ale Every Day, of this really good Remy beat that was on Nas's Godson, which honestly, it's the whole reason I did a Thor album, because I thought of how funny of a joke it is. You know, Nas did a whole album called God's Son, and if I took all the beats from it and did an album called Odin's Son, I just thought that was the funniest thing in the world, and so I did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we actually rewrote that with my wife rapping a verse as Jane, who does become Thor at the point, as we know. So that movie is not far from coming out, like next year. Yeah, I think when they're talking about it. Yeah, you might have to get that remix going. So,
there you go. Yeah. All right. So you've mentioned sulfurmusic.com. Link will be in the show notes. Where's some other places you want to direct people to? They can find you online. Is that like the one-stop shop?
Yeah, sulfurmusic.com is probably the one-stop shop because it has some links to my social media in the top right of my Bandcamp there. So it's probably the best place you can go. But, find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, I guess, if you like subpar social media. But I don't judge you. So, by all means.
Facebook is like, it's like, to me, it's like Walmart. I don't like going to Walmart, but what choice do I got?
That's honestly the best Facebook analogy I think I've ever heard. That's spot on. Absolutely. I log into it less and less, and I feel better and better for it, to be honest. But I still feel like I need to have it, out there. So there's that one person I check up on every couple weeks, only through Facebook. So
the nice thing about Facebook anymore is that it seemed like a number of years back, it seemed like Facebook was getting to a point where if you didn't have a Facebook, you might as well just not be online. It's like everything was going to be, you couldn't have it just almost felt like there was going to be a point where if you wanted to go to somebody's website, it wouldn't exist. You'd have to go to their Facebook. So you were forced to be on Facebook. But the nice thing is that's not the case. It never turned out that way. And I'm sure that what's his name wants it to be that way, but
Zach. Yeah. I really love VR stuff, and so I was pretty disheartened about with Quest 2, the forced Facebook thing. I'm still impressed that the biggest detraction, the biggest downside to a $300 VR unit is a forced Facebook login. I think that still speaks volumes for the system, but the last thing I want is Facebook to have access to me in VR. That seems problematic.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Take off the helmet and just really want to buy products, Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the smart TVs that we found out were watching you and, hey, they've got that dude's wearing Nikes. Let's feed that to the marketing team and start sending them. It's bad enough that I visit a freaking, buy a couple of comic books on one site. Then I go to another site and suddenly I got ads for the site I just bought comic books on. That kind of crap shouldn't happen. But
I agree. Before I proposed to my wife, I picked out her ring online, and it almost kind of blew me up before I ever got the chance to propose, because for months after that, I'm getting all these targeted ads for rings, and I'm like, how many people you think I'm trying to propose to right now? I've already got the ring.
And she's like, why are you getting all these ads about rings? Is there something you haven't told me?
Exactly. I don't want her to get my phone and then all of a sudden say, why don't you want me to see your phone? It's not what you think, I promise.
Right. How long you been married?
Just 3 years. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You'll be 19 in December.
Congratulations. Happy early anniversary. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, hey, it was good talking to you. Wheel of Rhyme, love it. I think, the fact that I think I would like it. Here's the compliment I'll throw your way.
Okay.
I would like it if I didn't know anything about Wheel of Time. The fact that the Wheel of Time, it was a big part of my life for a long time, just makes it that much better.
That's awesome.
I get everything. I mean, I'm looking through some of these lyrics. It's like just right away, the first freaking song, you got stuff in there like, ages come and ages pass, turn slowly, but it spirals fast, push until I breathe my last. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. It's like, I mean, that song starts out with that whole thing. You got it near the beginning of every book. Every time a chapter would start, the first chapter of a book.
Of course.
That whole ages come and pass, what was once myth became, love that. And then, what's some of this other stuff? Maryland, when I was first listening to this, I'd just put it on in the background, didn't have wasn't looking at it. And so I didn't know the names of any of these songs as they were coming up. So stuff would jump up like in Maryland on the Game of Houses, Deus Damar, and just these little references that would just suddenly just sink into my brain and go, oh yeah, that's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. And Tom Flamin' Maryland. I love Tom.
I do too. I love Tom so much. There was actually I'll call it the Chi-Tan version of that song was the one that was first written. But the first original recording of that did not say Fleming, but it became a very early choice to say we should use Wheel of Time cursing in this album. It'll make it more authentic and more accessible. So.
Well, and the fact that you call him in the original G, that just cracks me up.
Yeah, he's the original G.
He's a flaming Glee man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just, in book 2 is when you find out he's not dead.
Nice.
And then they kill his woman.
Yeah, that was hard.
And he's like, all right, I gotta go kill some people now. What am I gonna do? Gotta go kill some people.
I hope Tom gets some added nuance to his character in the show. There's like so many scenes that you feel like could be expanded on, and I could just read some side stories of Tom. Point me to a Tom fanfic, I'll read it.
Because I like I said, I listen to these. I'm listening to this stuff, and certain scenes will make me remember something that's coming up. And the only thing I can remember about Tom in future books is him basically being Rand's, like the guy who's playing the Game of Houses for Rand almost,
Sure.
I don't remember if he's used much beyond that.
He is. Knowing how far you went in the books, I know you'll remember that he does accompany with Julian Sandor, accompanies, Nynaeve and Elaine as they kind of start to go on their own travels. Is almost their bodyguard, and there's that whole thing with him and Elaine and her kind of remembering. But
that's right.
Yes, as you go into those last couple novels, I'm very excited to keep listening to your podcast. Hopefully, we can get to talk again about what you think, because I can't wait to hear what you think about Tom.
Well, and does Queen Morghese get overthrown at some point? Doesn't she have to? Her and Lenny the nurse. And then that big bodyguard dude and his girl, and they have to, and then Talonvor.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Man. Yeah. Stuff's coming back.
Yeah. It gets deep. I'm excited for this show, and I'm also trying to wrap my mind around how they're going to try and make this 8 or 9 seasons and not more than the books.
Right. It just makes you wonder if stuff like that, for example, the whole story with Morghese, is that, are they going to have to take these little side stories like that and not include them? Because I haven't finished. I don't know how stuff like that might impact the end of the book. So, but people just don't know what they're getting into when they crack open that first book. You just don't know really how dense, and not dense as in it's a slog. There's just so many memorable characters and things that happen, and it just goes off in so many different directions, and it's just so good. The world needs to read these books.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And luckily, there's going to be a much more accessible version of the story soon. My mother, for example, I have tried for years to get my own mom to read these books ever since I picked it back up. And as a kid, I remember mentioning it to her as well. But, the last few years, I'm like, I think you would really enjoy this. She's never picked them up, but she is very excited about the show. And so it's going to be this way I can sit down and share that with her and with my wife, and these sorts of things. So.
Well, unfortunately, at this point, it scares people to think about the fact. It's like, hey, you want a good book to read? Here's Eye of the World. And you almost don't want to tell them there's 14 more books after this. It's like you want them to read that first book and let them go. That was great. What's next? Here's 14 more books,
Exactly.
Because you tell them right off the bat, it's like, here's a series you should read. It's 15 books, and they're like, nah.
Who's got the time for that? Yeah,
I 5 books maybe.
Exactly.
But 15, it's just amazing. And how lucky are we that, unfortunate that we lost him. Mm-hmm. But how lucky are we at the same time that he had such extensive outlines for those last 3 books that somebody like Brandon Sanderson could come in and easily finish the series. That's the one thing I think I was nervous, because I did read that first Brandon Sanderson book, and I was nervous going into it because I just felt like it's not going to feel like the Wheel of Time. And it really did. There's almost no difference at all. You just take his name off the book and you'd never know.
Yeah.
And we got really lucky there.
We did. And, one thing I think I like most about those last 3 books with Brandon Sanderson is actually right there in that very first one, The Gathering Storm. It's the very first thing. It's the prologue. It's just such a, I'll be honest, I like wept openly when I first listened to the prologue for Gathering Storm, because it's so touching on levels. He talks about how the Wheel of Time is one of the reasons he writes fantasy, how he grew up on it, how he reread it. The same way you were talking in your Eye of the World podcast, how you would reread before a new release will come out. He did that for everyone. And then you think about him being approached unsolicited to finish this series that is part of the reason that he is, involved in what he's doing. And it was just such a gripping story. It showed me that he really should be the one finishing this and writing this and had that passion. And then he did a phenomenal job, without saying anything about it. One of the last chapters in the last book, I think, was mainly authored by Jordan. And it as an audiobook, it's 8 hours.
Yeah.
8-hour chapter.
I think I read that he did. Yeah, he had those last 3 books, these extensive outlines, and had written the ending.
Yes.
The ending was already written. So, and having written a couple books myself, sometimes you write the beginning and the end, and then it's like, crap, now I got to figure out all this crap that's going to come in the middle. The ending and the beginning and the end's easy. How do you get all this other stuff in the middle? But and I guess Brandon Sanderson read the first few episode scripts of the show, and he's given it his official thumbs up. He said fans of the books will enjoy the show. So yeah, I just I don't know. I get nervous. I tend to get overly critical when it comes to special effects.
Sure.
But yeah. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be disappointed. I think it's just going to be just fine.
I think it will be. I'm excited to hear your thoughts, though. I am famously not critical of much. So, if I go to see a superhero film and 2 big, super powerful creatures start punching each other in the face, I think, well, this is what I paid for, and I'm totally and thoroughly pleased.
So. I distinctly remember talking to someone when Peter Jackson's King Kong came out.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, we're going to go see King Kong tonight. And they said, man, that's like 3 hours long. And I've heard it's really slow. And I said, does a giant gorilla fight 3 Tyrannosaurus Rexes in that movie? And they're like, yeah. And I said, then I'm there. And that's I'm the same way. Matter of fact, when a movie comes out and it's especially a superhero movie or something like that, and people start bad mouthing it, right away I'm like, oh, I'm going to like this movie. Because you can kind of tell when people start bad mouthing really kind of a nitpicky way.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, I'm probably gonna like this because
Absolutely.
I'm not all that critical either. I'm not a smart man, so I'm not thinking about how everything's going to turn out for the first 5 minutes of the movie. I'm just going along for the ride, and I think people just need to do that, and I think they'd enjoy stuff a lot more.
Absolutely. I think about the 2 times I've tried stand-up comedy in my life, which feels like a weird parallel. But the first time I ever tried stand-up comedy in my life, it was for this little improv group that always had a stand-up comedian featured in the middle of their improv. And, at one point I was just getting this desire, like, I really want to do stand-up. And I approached the person running and said, I know you've never seen me do stand-up, so it's a big ask, but let me get that 15-minute spot and I will crush it. I promise you. And I actually did. I did really well. Kind of brought the house down, and I had this really good feeling about it. So much so that the next week I went out to a open mic night for comedy, tried some of the same stuff, and did not crush it at all. And what I realized was, that audience that went to the improv show was an audience of people that came to see a comedy show. Yeah. They wanted to laugh. They were waiting for the moment you said something that on any level would make them laugh, and then they were full force. And then when I went to the open mic night, and all those people were awesome as well, but they were all other comedians waiting their turn, very skeptical. You were going to have to win them over. It was going to have to be the funniest thing to make them laugh. And I think it's just two different styles of going to consume media. You know, are you going into a movie and it has to win you over, or are you going into a movie ready to enjoy it and wanting to?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's fun to hear you say that, because if you listen to comedians talk about being comedians, if you ever watched any of like Jerry Seinfeld's riding in cars, getting coffee with comedians and stuff like that, when they just talk about the aspect of being a comedian and how, you can have this set that'll kill one night in one venue and just nobody will laugh the next night, and how sometimes you have to spend a year doing these different bits, going into comedy places, trying stuff out to really get 15 solid minutes, of good bits. And that's because I admit it. I'm like, I think I could do stand-up comedy, but I don't think I could. I don't think I have the freaking stamina for it. It sounds like you really gotta put up with a lot to get to the point where you got some really good stuff. Because some, like you said, some audiences, can just be incredibly critical.
Absolutely.
And absolutely crazy.
I think you could absolutely do it and crush it, but just like anything else, you gotta want it. Yep. And you gotta be willing to go through those nights that ain't great. And I think that's what stalls a lot of people out on any sort of art, particularly that involves performance. It's not about the nights where they love you.
Right. And stuff like that, it's a young man's game, young woman's game, because you get to a certain point in life, and I got a wife and 3 kids. I got a dog. I got 2 cats. I can't starve while I'm trying to
absolutely
build something like that. My life's built.
I totally get that. There was a point, I think, younger, when I was making music, and I said, man, I want to eat off of this. I want selling music and touring to be my income, and I want to do that. And I'll be honest, I don't want that anymore. I love making music, I love performing, and I never want to stop either of those things. But also, I like being able to release things I'm truly inspired by, and then only have to do that, and not have to worry about paying my light bill off of this album that I need to grind out really fast so I can pay that light bill. And
because that's when you have to, until you can get to a point where you're like the Beastie Boys, when you're so big that it doesn't matter what you do. If you're chasing that dream, you then face the possibility of doing stuff, writing stuff, pandering, and kind of selling your soul a bit in little bits throughout the years, just to make sure you pay that light bill.
Exactly.
No, I get it, because and it's not really a good comparison, but I've said on the podcast many times, it's like, look, would I love to be able to just do this full time, get enough people over on my Patreon that I can just pay all my bills, and I can just get up in the morning and I'm going to do some podcasting today. That's all I got to worry about. I'm going to watch this show on my podcast. That's all I got to worry about today. That'd be great. But that's not the goal,
Absolutely.
That's not the goal. That's, because I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And that's really all we can do. Just find something that you're happy doing. And, got to chase that happiness, however you get it.
I agree wholeheartedly. The best performing advice I ever got was when I was a kid. My dad was actually just trying to settle my nerves about public speaking, which I used to not want to do as a kid at all. In high school, I would leave class before I'd get up and read a paper, which I guess makes it weird. I get on stage and rap at people now, but when I was younger, my dad told me, hey, as long as you have fun, anyone watching you is going to have fun as well. And I've tried to apply that to both recording and performing in terms of what I'm doing. And anytime I've sat down and wrote something because I have a deadline, because somebody needs it, because I feel like it needs to be made, I always look back on it and say, that's not my best work. I can hear it. I can tell. No judgment on anybody else that does it either. There's,
right.
But
You can only do what you can do.
Exactly.
And that is kind of the nice thing about being at a point in life where it's like, I don't have to do this. Because, to go back to podcasting, I've started episodes. It's like, oh, crap, I got to have an episode out tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And sometimes I'll just sit down and start talking, and it's like the best thing I've ever done. And sometimes I'll sit down and start talking, and then I'll go back and listen to it, and I'm like, nah, I would much rather say I'm not doing an episode this week, folks. I'd rather you not get anything than get trash. Sure. So,
that's just respecting your audience, and I respect that. Yeah. So that's awesome.
All right, man. Well, hey, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It's been really fun hanging out, Steven.
Yeah. We'll do it again. I think maybe after that first season's done, maybe we'll get back together and just talk about the whole season.
Please, I would love to geek out over that. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Do a special wrap up of the Wheel of Time with the man who gave us the Wheel of Rhyme.
Michael Kill, he's going to be on the show. That's awesome.
No, I got to get both on, man.
I was about to say, maybe we could both come on. Speaking of watching it with my mom, I should probably have put Michael Kill before that because he's never read the books, but he's going to be watching this show. Good. I'm very excited to sit down and hopefully even watch this with Kill personally. So that would be really cool for us to both come on.
Yeah, that would be fun then. Two people that have, grown up with the stuff, and then one guy who just got introduced to it.
Exactly. I want to hear that opinion. I want to hear the person that's never read it at all and what they think, because I think it's going to be a good opinion. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
There you go, folks. That was me talking to Sulfur. Like I said, I did a lot of talking, and I am a little bit embarrassed about that. And now, since I've already apologized to him, I'm going to apologize to y'all. I know that I'm the reason why you tune in. Obviously, it's my podcast. You want to hear my silky smooth tones. But I don't know. Next time I'll let him talk a bit more if he's willing to come back on. But that's it. That's the episode, folks. I'm not going to do much of a wrap up because the show is pretty long this week. I will say that you're going to get another episode next week, and then the show is going to go on a bit of a hiatus. I'm going to wrap up season 5 with next week's episode, and then I invite you all to join me over at the Streaming Fool the following week. Even though I have been releasing episodes of the Streaming Fool, the week of Thanksgiving is my official launch of the Streaming Fool podcast, and the plan is to have an episode Monday through Friday, 5 episodes that week, 3 of them dealing with the first 3 episodes of the Wheel of Time, and then 2 of them dealing with the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye over on Disney Plus. Be there or not. It's your choice. I can't make you do stuff, but you're going to be missing out on a lot of fun. Until then, folks, my name is Steven, and I'm just another fanboy. Be nice to each other.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Good job.